Happy Monday morning, Georgia Tech fans, and welcome in to that Monday edition of Swarm Talk. My name is Bryce Koon. As we get ready, it is Clemson week. It's a big one. Should I say? I guess I should say it's Clemson week because it's not Clemson. I learned that a lot in week one. Welcome in. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe for watching live. Yeah, it's a weird time. We're not doing our typically normal times, but we're going to get that show schedule out here for you, especially for you Tech fans there. In terms of what we're going to be doing week in and week out, tomorrow we will have our Behind Enemy Lines episode with a member of the Clemson media. I got to get that, Ralph. The Clemson media, and then we'll have our preview and predictions there on Thursday. So make sure you check in, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you are tuned in to the channel. This one's not going to be super long because, to be honest with you, there's not a ton that you're going to be able to take away from a win against Gardner-Webb. Yes, there's a lot of things that you want to clean up. There's some really awesome things there as well. But to be honest with you, we'll see what happens. Shout out TriStar. 10 months he's been a member now, and he is an SEC contender. He says Tech is by God, not on God, but by God. Maxwell says need to get the penalties under control. That is something that is probably pretty true. J.R. Burns says that remembering winning ain't free. Send a check even if it's only $100. We need 40,000 fans sending a check every calendar quarter. That would be $16 million annually. JR, I think you've changed the verbiage of that over the past year and a half. And hats off to you. I haven't noticed. The Jackets had best stop turnovers and penalties if we are going to beat Clemson. And then Alex says if GT starts strong, gets to an early lead, I think they have a really, really good shot. All right, so let's dive in. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Let's first off talk about the takeaways from the Gardner-Webb game. Look, I think, and I'll talk about him here in a second, about Aaron Philo. I think just, cleaning up some of the things, right? I mean, this is an opportunity. This is a game where you're able to experiment with some things. The sloppiness that I think people were concerned with, and Ralph, you could pull this up. I know it was in the Discord. Chad Bishop covers Georgia Tech for the AJC, kind of posted the good and the bad, I think, of the statistical categories of what Georgia Tech has done so far. So shout out Chad on that one. But just in terms of what you take away from this game, I think, and Malachi Hosley said this after the game, him and Jamal Haynes are going to be nice. Like, that's going to be a nice little combination that you needed, right? We went into the season saying, you had to have a complement to Haynes in the backfield. You think you think you have that, right? And then anything you get in terms of your 3 and 4 running backs is just kind of, the cherry on top. So you've got 2 running backs. That's going to bode well as you enter conference play. You're able to lean on Gardner-Webb. You're able to be explosive. Shout out Jordan Allen with a big play. That's a guy who we had on the show when he committed or flipped from Louisville over to Georgia Tech. Explosive playmaker, a track guy there as well. And, it's just one of those things that you kind of see. Real quick, I want to talk to you before we get too far into this. And, yes, I'm going to switch cameras, Ralph. We're going to talk a little bit about this, but I want to tell you about our friends over at Section 103. They've come out with some great polos. They've done a fantastic job with a lot of the gear, and I really want you to be able to take part in it, right? I want you to be able to just get a polo for game day, right? We all know the Georgia Tech Adidas line isn't the most favorable line. Could have some news on that pretty soon, by the way. But you're going to want to be able to take advantage of what they have, their offer over on their store. I know they've sold out of a lot of the Tech stuff. They're going to be getting it back in October, early October. So if you didn't already, they had a pop-up shop at the game. They do a fantastic job, and you really need to get their gear because the polos, by the way, you see the LSU polos there at the top, very comfortable. Ralph's going to be rocking one this weekend inside Death Valley. Rock one inside Bobby Dodd for a big game this weekend. And also, too, it's a whiteout. So if you want to rock something, they still have some of the white polos. So I think that's something that you can still take advantage of. A lot of rearranging happening in the background of this ad read. So shout out what they are being and what they're doing. Okay, Ralph, I think we're good now. What is that? Donate so I can get a MacBook Pro. I can get a higher powered computer. Coffee Killer says afternoon all hell with Georgia. It's 9:30 over here in the Central. I didn't sleep well last night either, so I'm a little groggy this morning. All right, let's go back to the Gardner-Webb takeaways real quick. So in terms of the takeaways of Gardner-Webb and what you have here, this is kind of where I sit with it. You have a team that you are way more talented than you go impose their will. There's things you want to clean up. I'll say this, and Ralph was producing our Bengal Tiger LSU episode the other night, and I think a lot of the similarities are here with this, maybe more so in the Georgia Tech game. Some of the, I would say, some of the maybe the sloppiness that people are hinting at. The get myself a CPAP. Why would I need a CPAP? I'm sorry, Maxwell. Like what? What are we doing? Um, in all seriousness, though, some of the sloppiness could be due to the emotional, roller coaster of going and playing on the road, primetime game last Friday night against the, you know, against Colorado. You come off of that, and now I'll be able to kind of sit here and play a lesser than opponent, sandwiched in between. Shout out Coffee Killer with that $10 donation. We appreciate you. All that being said, it's just maybe the emotional roller coaster. It's hard to get up for a game against Gardner-Webb. And look, the crowd was great. The student section was great. Hats off to them. You kind of have to manufacture that, and I don't think it's going to carry over into next week. They're going to be ready to go. Like I have the full utmost confidence that Brinke's going to have this team ready to play on Saturday. So, in terms of some of the sloppiness, the attention to detail mistakes that maybe we saw on Saturday, not really worried about that carrying over. I feel like we've seen enough in terms of the data points of this team getting up for big games that I'm not necessarily worried about that. Now, when you play some of these teams in the ACC that you should be better than, that's where you're like, okay, that's where you got to make the jump. We talked about that in the preseason, right? Like when you go on the road and play Boston College, when you host Pitt at home, these are teams that you feel like you are better than. Yeah, it's not a Clemson, Georgia, Colorado. It's not a big name brand, but you still got to go win those football games, and you got to be able to stay at that level throughout the whole game. So, Gardner-Webb takeaways. Look, you dominated. You got a lot of guys, in the game, and I think that's amazing. A lot of guys got experience for the first time in a college atmosphere. That's awesome. That's exactly what you wanted. You were able to rest Haynes King, and that's something that was the talk of social media, I guess, going into the weekend last week. But it's one of those things where, look, he was obviously banged up against Colorado, and you know, however you want to slice the cake on this is you wanted to keep him healthy. You got to make sure he's 100%, 110%, or at least close to 100% getting ready for this game against Clemson. The beauty of it, we'll talk about it here in a second, is you got a quarterback in Aaron Philo who you trust, and especially in a game against an inferior opponent, it's an opportunity for him to work things out that you wanted. So I like where they sit heading into this week. We're going to talk about it a lot this week in terms of what I expect to see, but in terms of putting a bow on the Gardner-Webb game, you went out and dominated. Yeah, there's things you can clean up, but you won the game by a very large margin. Did they cover the spread, Ralph? I don't remember what the spread was on this game. Was there a spread? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? We don't know. We don't know ball. We have to ask Addie. Addie knows ball. All right, so that's Gardner-Webb takeaways. Really putting a bow on that. Not too much to talk about. I like what they did, but I'm not going to blow this. We're not going to spend 20 minutes talking about, oh my gosh, so-and-so is the next coming of Calvin Johnson, or so-and-so is the next coming of Justin Thomas or Demaryius Thomas. Like we're not doing that. It's an FCS game. You win, you dominate them, you do what you need to do. So there you go. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, one of the big things coming out of this game was Aaron Philo. 21 of 28, 373 yards, a touchdown, and an interception for the backup quarterback for Georgia Tech. The Aaron Philo reaction to this. Look, I didn't watch the full game live, at least. I went back and watched it. Ralph says the spread was 37.5. So I didn't watch the full game in real time. Watched a good portion of it and then watched the rewind of it last night or yesterday afternoon. The idea that Aaron Philo, it has creeped into the minds of people I saw on social media, and that's fine. Like, it's reactionary. That's what fans are and everything, right? That Aaron Philo is the better option, maybe the better option in the passing game going forward. There's probably some truth to that. Like, Ralph, I don't think that's crazy to say that Philo maybe at this point right now offers you a little bit more in the passing game. Okay, I'll ride with you on that. But I think in terms of, the been there, the big game experience, look, you're going to lean back into Haynes King. But in terms of what Philo brought you, I mean, the pass to Isaiah Canyon for the touchdown was a dot. The kid I think this is the biggest thing. He's got arm strength, but he's got touch. And we see a lot of kids with big arms, but we don't see necessarily the combination at that age of being able to put good touch on the football. And I thought he was there. And a game like this where he can take the reins, and truthfully, hats off to Brent Key, Buster Faulkner, and Chris Winkie. Look, we all know that Haynes King probably wanted to play this game. Did he need to for them to win? No, he didn't. What does this allow you to do? It allows you to hand the reins to Aaron Philo for one game, knowing that there's no situational substitutions. That's his game until you put Graham Knowles in, which, by the way, Graham Knowles' QBR rating, Ralph, please look this up. It was like 1,100 because he's like 1 of 1 for 84 yards. It was crazy. And a touchdown. Anyways, but with Philo, it's one of those things where it's like this was the perfect opportunity, right? For him to come in, assume the reins, assume leadership from snap number one, and be the guy that you can utilize both with his legs and with his arm. And we saw that, right? We saw what this offense would look like in terms of if Philo was the starter. And it still can be very good. Now, like we said, we're not going to blow this out of proportion because it's against an FCS opponent. And, if his number needs to be called, though, I think we all have the confidence that he'd go out there and win you an ACC game. Graham Knowles says QBR, or Ralph said, Graham Knowles didn't say this. Ralph says Graham Knowles' QBR, 1135.6. That's insane. He was 1 for 1, right, Ralph? Like 1 for 1. Is it 84 yards and a touchdown? Like that's wild. We had him on the pod 2 years ago when he committed. He's an awesome young man. But no, kind of going back to this Aaron Philo reaction, I thought he had great touch, great pocket awareness, was aware of what he needed to do, could climb up in the pocket and make throws. And those are the things that you can take away from an FCS game. Does this guy, can he go through his reads? Does he understand how to progress, through what he needs to see? And does he understand what he's seeing from a coverage standpoint? So I liked that completely. Like I said, not going to blow it out of the water. It's an FCS game. I think Aaron Philo could go win you an ACC game if needed right now. And the question's going to be all week, and JR hits it here. He goes, we will see you both King and Philo against Clemson. You might. The worry with that would be for me does it become too predictable? Right. And maybe people don't care because they feel like Haynes King and Georgia Tech is too predictable anyways in running the football. We talked about that last week. So I don't know. I think that Philo is a good young talent and he's going to continue to be developed. I loved the opportunity that this FCS game this FCS game gave you, sandwiched in between two big matchups for you. Like you're able to rest Haynes King after just a grueling physical battle 2 weeks ago. Now you get him ready. You get him the extra, couple of days of rest to where now he can go out there this week, continue to heal up and get ready to put his body back on the line, right? And then I think that to me is super important for what you needed. So hats off to Aaron Philo. He looked good. He had some great touch. He had some great, just great reads. Like, got to go back and watch it. And then I guess there's not people don't have access to all 22. But when you go back and show the replays of some of the throws he made, watch the coverages, watch what he's looking at. I mean, he understands what he's looking at. He did a good job of that. And so shout out to Aaron Philo. Looked really, really good in this one. I loved what he brought to the table. And I think it's one of those things that going forward, put that in the notebook of that was a big opportunity for him to just go through the process of being the starter. Like you need that. You never know when you have to call his number, 10 minutes for a kickoff. Now he's been in the situation, especially this year with this group and understanding how to lead this type of offense. I know he did it last year a couple times, but it's one of those things where he can go doing it forward. So yeah, there we go. Now let's talk a little bit about, I guess, an early look at Clemson. And this is where we'll spend a majority of the show here today. What does this week mean for you? Going into the season, I predicted LSU to lose to Clemson. So it would have put Clemson undefeated heading into this game. And Clemson, shout out Ralph, was almost defeated heading into this game. So very different, I guess, expectations coming into the season about what we thought maybe about Clemson, right? This is kind of what I'll say this, and I'm excited to talk. I'm going to recording it later this afternoon, and we'll drop the episode tomorrow of kind of, the behind enemy lines. What's the feeling, in terms of Clemson and what's the morale like? After the first 2 weeks have just been kind of weird. Just one of those things that wasn't. I would say it just wasn't comfortable. They haven't looked comfortable yet this year, and that's something where you kind of maybe expected against LSU. No disrespect, they probably should have looked a little bit more comfortable against Troy on Saturday. But what does this week mean? I think it's very important for us to understand this is still a litmus test game. This is still a program litmus test opportunity for Georgia Tech heading into this game. I understand that Clemson may not look as formidable as the preseason prognosticators, including myself, thought that they would be. I get that. I understand that completely. This is still a big opportunity. So let's don't diminish what Georgia Tech has the opportunity to do just because Clemson turns out to maybe not be as necessarily as good. Because I'm going to tell you this right now, and Ralph and I were talking about this. I don't agree with Ralph's assessment, but I think there's a lot of truth to what he's trying to say. This is a Clemson team that can still win the ACC. They're maybe just not one of the elite 4 or 5 teams in the country this year. So that to me is, don't move the goalpost back on what Georgia Tech can accomplish here just because Clemson might not be as elite as we maybe thought they were. They still have a really good quarterback in Cade Klubnik. I've said this on the last show last night. He's very talented. And Goldfellow says right here, Clemson's still a very talented team. There's a reason we haven't won against them in a decade. If we beat them, the answer is yes, we are a contender. If we do not, then the answer is maybe. And I think that's a really, really good, really good assessment there. So, when you talk about this, the first thing to get out of the way is this is still very much a very, very big opportunity. Georgia Tech, you get them at home. This is one of the few games at home this year. Ooh, you don't get Duke at home. Ralph, that schedule just escaped my mind there for a second. This is, and obviously it's your biggest home game of the year, but this might be the biggest home game in quite some time. Ooh, had to sneeze there for a second. So what does this week mean? It means everything to Brent Key and to Haynes King and to Georgia Tech, because you have an opportunity now to prove yourself against a team that has been at the top of the ACC for multiple years and been the most dominant team in the ACC for the past decade, right? I mean, just in terms of extrapolating over the past 10 to 15 years, Clemson's been near the top of that. So it's just one of those things, and Ralph says Syracuse is a home revenge game, in my opinion. Definitely a sense to that. I think this is just an opportunity to showcase where you have grown under Brent Key and during his time as the head coach. When you look at the opportunity that you have, look, and we're going to dive into this a lot this week, I think it's a chance for this offensive line to prove that they've improved on things since week 1, where they struggled a little bit at times, because you are facing – in this Clemson defense, you're facing some great individual talent. Now, this is kind of after being at Memorial Stadium 2 weeks ago, watching the game up close and personal. That's what I can kind of tell you about this Clemson team. I don't think they have elite team speed compared to what LSU put out there. In fairness, you can be as casual as you want in this and go look at the EA College Bowl 26 ratings. LSU's team speed is elite. It's ridiculous. So not many teams have that when you compare it up against what they have. Clemson's team defensive speed wasn't overwhelming. And Georgia Tech has weapons that can be utilized, especially in the speed category, that I think could match up pretty well with this Clemson defense. So get that out of the way in terms of that. I think that Clemson has great individual talent. Look, we can talk about TJ Parker. We can talk about Peter Woods, Will Helt. I mean, that's just 3 defensive linemen and an edge rusher right there that you've got that are going to be Sunday players. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. To me, Wade Woodaz is not scaring anybody on this Georgia Tech offense. Sammy Brown is good. I don't think he's the superstar that Clemson fans think that he is quite yet, and that's fine. He's in game number 14 of his college career, is what it is. So just in terms of that, you have Avion Terrell in the back end. That's going to be a potential round 1 pick. One of those things where you kind of look like they've got great individual talent. Collectively, they played good against LSU's offense, and they shut some things down for Troy in that second half. So when you look at this, if you're able to operate and execute and not shoot yourselves in the foot and some people have already said that in the comments. If you're able to do that, it's one of those things where you like your chances against this defense because while they have great individual talent, I think Buster Faulkner needs to take a page out of what Joe Sloan did. The screen game killed Clemson in week 1. The average depth of throw, and this would be a great stat to get, and we'll try to get it later for this week. The average depth of the H throw for Garrett Nussmeier in that week 1 game wasn't crazy. They did a lot of dump offs. They did a lot of bubble screens, a lot of drag routes. I mean, they did a lot of screens where the offensive line would let the defensive line, pretty much pursue the slot receiver, which in this, or the receiver that would be most compatible with this for Georgia Tech would be either Rivers or Rutherford, runs a drag, dump it off, and let them go get some yak. So I think, just to me, the game plan's there. The way to beat them is there, and LSU showed you that. Georgia Tech has some personnel on offense that could fit nicely into that. Now, across the board, is it the same? No. The biggest part of this game is, and I've told you, I don't think Clemson's as formidable as we maybe thought they were coming into the year. That's not a secret to anybody. And I think that Georgia Tech has some weapons that could take advantage. And the third part of it is, this is where, for me, it's one of those things where it's where can you win the game in the trenches? 2 years ago when you played this game, Clemson just dominated you in the trenches. They were more physical. They were bigger, faster, stronger. They just did what they needed to do. Dr. Bob, at work, Dr. Bob, 4.4 yards was Nussmeier's average depth of throw versus Clemson. Great job there. So can you win the game in the phone booth? And I've been saying that a lot here, last, I guess, 2 weeks. I think Georgia Tech's got a good chance to beat just about anybody on their schedule if they play them inside the phone booth. This game, though, coming into the season, I thought you'd have to be more vertical in the passing game. I'm starting to lean towards it. It's Monday, and I'm going to watch some more film. I'm going to watch them play against Troy again, and do this. I don't know if you have to get vertical all the time against Clemson. I think Georgia Tech is willing. Oh, I know they're willing to. I think Georgia Tech can play this game inside the box and line up and still come out with a win. Like, I believe that wholeheartedly. So you've got the offensive line, you've got the quarterback, you've got the 2 running backs. I think you're going to have to use the third in this game in the phone booth. People don't know what that means. Ralph, you don't know what that means? What does the phone booth mean? Playing in the phone booth is essentially playing, when you get in a phone booth with another person and you're wrestling for the phone and you got to box them for it? That's what it is. In the crowd, look at that, Alex, in the crowded booth. You can play this game physically. I think Georgia Tech can win this game, win the battle of the trenches. If you lose the battle of the trenches, and this goes for any of the better competition that Georgia Tech's going to face this year, and it's obviously self-explanatory. If you lose in the battle of the trenches, though, that to me is when it starts to get testy, because then you're starting to say, okay, now you're going to rely on the arm of Haynes King, which isn't bad, but it can't be one-dimensional passing the ball, throwing the ball over the yard. That's not who they want to be. They're not going to abandon the run. LSU didn't do that in week 1. I don't think Georgia Tech should do that. So I think leading up into this game, and here on Monday at 9:55 a.m. Central, I like where Georgia Tech sits. I like the identity of the team where they sit heading into this game. I think they've got a really good chance to go win this football game too. So can you play in the phone booth and win is an early key to this game for me. Because I don't think you have to necessarily stretch the field. You got to take some shots. You've got to be willing to spread them out at times. The second part I told you was you can't shoot yourself in the foot in this game. And I know some people let off the show, talking about the turnover category and stuff like that. Clemson's way too good of a team to give them extra opportunities. So offensively, you have to be that well-oiled machine that I think fans know you can be, and the staff and the players know you can be. Can you play nearly a flawless game offensively? You can go win this football game. And then, like I said, to kind of open up this segment, yes, Clemson's not the elite team right now that we thought they would be. It's also week 3 of college football. Teams are allowed to evolve and devolve. But let's not move the goalpost back on what a win would mean here for Georgia Tech. This is a big game, and it's an opportunity for me to see where you are as a program. Where has Brent Key brought you? Okay, you went on the road and you beat Colorado. That's awesome. You dominated an FCS team in Gardner-Webb. If you lose this game, everything's still in front of you of what you want to accomplish. You still have an opportunity to do that. But it's just one of those things now where you kind of sit, now what you know about Clemson, and you've seen the past 2 weeks, uninspired play, I think Saturday's the biggest indicator of what you saw at Clemson and where Tech fans are kind of, and maybe the players are like kind of salivating, right? They're getting like, you like that? Clip that. Crowded booth out of context. No context. They're getting excited because it's not necessary. I think people can try and say, yeah, LSU's defense is maybe one of the best in the country. When you went out there against Troy and you were Clemson and you didn't really do anything for the first half, you couldn't move the ball. Nothing was crisp. Nothing was comfortable offensively. That to me was one of those things where it's like, okay, you got every opportunity to win it. And it shouldn't mean less because they're not as good. That's still the brand in the ACC right now. And until they're knocked off, they're going to be that. This is a big opportunity for brand recognition for Georgia Tech. It's a big opportunity to establish yourself in the conference race. And what I like about that and playing off of that is it's an opportunity to get ahead, right? I mean, if you get that 1-0 mark in the ACC and you get that 1-0 mark and have that win over Clemson, you start to look at some of the tiebreakers, you start to get kind of funky with it. You've got a perfect opportunity to kind of go and do what you need to do. So I like where Tech sits into this one. We're going to dive more into who Clemson is and what the vibe is. We'll have that tomorrow for you. And then obviously, later this week, really look at this game. I didn't really talk about the defensive side of the football. I don't think Clemson's offensive line is great. I think they're solid. The big key is going to be creating some pressure. That's going to be the big key. The big key on defense, create some pressure and contain Cade Klubnik. That's where you're going to have to see some of this improved speed on Georgia Tech's defense flash and showcase. I think E.J. Lightsey is a player to watch. He's there. And I see Nico says, I don't like their coverage. Here's the one thing about this for me, and look, we've only had 2 games to look at this, right? I didn't come away from that LSU Clemson game feeling like Clemson had elite talent on the outside. That was just me. I didn't think they had created great separation. Now, could that be because LSU has a good secondary? It could be. Totally could be. I think that, in this game, you need your corners to step up because they have good talent. Wesco's a good football player. I know Gavin said earlier if Antonio Williams isn't playing, that's something we'll have to monitor. We'll ask our guest later today. What does that create for you? If they can create some separation, that would be troublesome because then it becomes on the front 7. And Klubnik, I expect Garrett Riley to do this, by the way. I expect them to try to get the ball out as quick as possible and let their guys make plays in space. Don't let Georgia Tech's front 7 be a factor. That would be my game plan. And then I guess just the last part of it is you got to contain Cade Klubnik. You have to. He's a really good athlete. He can extend plays. They didn't roll him out as much in that LSU game as I thought they, were able to do. And then, they weren't able to really do a lot against Troy. So it's really weird that the talent isn't matching up with the production so far. And, look, if you believe in the law of averages, if you believe in look in the back of the, football or baseball card, typically what we see is it all comes back to the mean, right? I think this is going to come back to the mean. I don't think Clemson's a complete disaster in terms of this, but I think it's one of those things where you're going to see them be able to do some things. So can you, going back to it, what does this Clemson week mean? It's a great opportunity to make a statement win. Obviously, we know that. It's an opportunity to learn more about, for the nation about what Brent Key is, what Georgia Tech is, and where he is. The third part of it is don't move the goalpost back because it's still a big win if you go get it. And then can you win the game in the phone booth? Can you win the game in the trenches? We'll have more, obviously, this week in terms of this. Like I said, tomorrow we'll have our episode where we go behind enemy lines and we talk more about this game. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm pumped I get to watch this entire game before heading down to Tiger Stadium and watching LSU Florida. So We'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great opportunity to make a statement, stake your case in the ACC race, and stake your case as a potential playoff team. I will say this: if Georgia Tech wins this, and they won't do it, but I will. If they won't do it. If Georgia Tech wins this, I'm putting them top 17 in the country. Like, I don't know what you want to see anymore of them. They dominated an FCS opponent. They went in on the road and beat what I think is a decent to average Colorado team in week 1. I don't know what you want to see. So it's we'll see. College football's here, baby. It's not just here. It's rocking and rolling. We got to get the camera fixed, but that's okay. Shout out for that dono at the beginning of the show. We appreciate you. We will be live on Wednesday afternoon to talk about all the games, including this game. Around we're gonna test it. We're thinking around 4:30 Eastern for that show. So make sure you lock it in. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the channel. We appreciate all the support. Also, all-time viewership last night, which was awesome on the show. Over almost 600 people watching live. High 500s consistently for an hour plus, which is what we love to see. So we appreciate. I like what Zach says here. Embrace the craziness that is college football. Let's do it. Let's enjoy it. Let's lock it in. Make sure you check out our friends over at Section 103. You always know our good friends over at All Natural BS there as well. They do a fantastic job, and we want you to be a part of what they have going on as well. But Bob, leaving us out here with, he is an engineer from Georgia Tech with an MD and master's degree in statistics from Tulane and is published. Is that AI from Duke? Stats are my game, and the credit booth intern is my sacred duty. We appreciate it. Dr. Bob, we got to Ralph and I are going to be hanging out with Dr. Bob. We might do a Dr. Bob vlog in a couple of weeks. The credit booth's getting more crowded, baby. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to see. We like to talk ball. We want you to come talk ball with us. Ralph Leary in the background. My name is Bryce Koon. We appreciate you tuning in. Like I said, we'll be live Wednesday. Make sure to set up those notifications, by the way. Hang on the Discord. Join over at thecrowdedbooth.com so you know we're dropping the latest content there as well. We'll see you next time. Swarm Talk brought to you by the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.